Well, it starts a lot earlier than that, really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it starts with my childhood, certain aspects of it. But I think a place to start with that is really my teenage years. I started using drugs around 13, 14. Basically found my first experience was with benzos.
Mm,
I got these benzos and I got super high off
sure.
them, and I loved the effect of them. And that was around about 13, 14.
Mm,
And from that point, I basically chased some kind of high, that
sure.
euphoria that it brought, but also that release of, I guess, pain. Like I felt normal and happy, I think, for one of the first times in my life when I used,
Mhm.
which is at least that's how I remember a lot of it, like it was like I took this thing and yeah, I just felt amazing, and by the time I was 15, I had an overdose, and I ended up in Middlemore.
Wow.
If I would have loved it, when as a 15-year-old, I showed up to
Mm,
Middlemore due to an overdose, and it was a very kind of, how would you say, it was a very clinical process,
mm,
and being a 15-year-old, you don't really know how to respond to everything
exactly.
properly. And there's still a lot of fear,
Yes.
a lot of not understanding the world. So I would have loved to have
Mm,
a peer support or somebody that was potentially lived
mm.
experience there. So that's where it sort of started for me.
Especially when you're 15,
Yeah, yeah.
not being judged or feel like you're being
Mm.
assessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the questions, I mean, I don't want to get into the specifics of, but there was a few questions they asked. I was like, what has this actually got to do with anything?
Yeah.
It's like they were prying into all the aspects of my life as a
I,
15-year-old,
I was going to
Yeah.
say almost like an autopsy about like the
Yeah.
whole life, but it's
Yeah.
like I don't need that.
Exactly. I don't need that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Definitely. So that was sort of my first experience. Like I overdosed,
Mm,
started using these substances, overdosed, ended up in ED a few months after that. And this is where there was intervention, like good intervention at that point. The next part probably wouldn't have happened, but I sort of had a similar experience where I blacked out on some substances. And I remember sort of walking out of the door at home. And then I remember waking up in the Papakura police station, and there was this like glass door, and I just didn't know
mm,
where I was, how I got there,
mm.
lost, the context of all that stuff. There was police officers on the other side, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm really hungry. So I started like talking to the police officer across. I need some food. Give me some food.
Yeah.
And not sure how And one of the police officers was saying to him,
Yeah.
like, don't talk to him, just leave him alone.
Yeah.
But that police officer went and got me some snacks and stuff.
Oh,
And then the next thing I knew, I was being sent over to the adult, not the adult, the adolescent and child and family
yeah.
unit near Starship
Yeah.
in Auckland Hospital. And then they sent me into the high intensity ward there, the high
Yes. Yeah.
dependency ward or
Yeah.
whatever. And I remember they took me my shoelaces, the doors weren't able to be
Wow.
locked. And like as a 15-year-old, this is quite an intense experience.
Yes. Scary.
At the root of it was my drug use and stuff like this, but there was also underlying mental health stuff
Yeah.
that was going.
Because
You
that's
know,
what I
mm,
hear is a very punitive
mm,
approach
yep,
of your like
mm,
experience
yeah,
because it's not therapeutic. The whole mental health services
mm.
approaches and all that are very punitive. Sorry.
It's quite. I mean, the thing is, like, the history of a lot of the support around mental health hasn't been good in New Zealand.
Mm,
Also globally, but in New Zealand, when you look at things like Lake Alice
that's right.
and Selwyn leaks and all that
That's
kind of
right.
stuff. So our history, this is adolescent mental health we're talking about. It's had a dark
Mm,
sort of start, and yeah, there's definitely stories around things like Kingseed and
yeah.
Carrington that are also. So by the time was in 2007 when I
Mm,
had this
mm,
admission to the psych ward, and things had changed a little bit,
that's right.
but there was still a lot of judgment. And being a youth in that space, it was also very scary because like all of a sudden you're taken out of society and
Mm,
plugged into basically this high in what do they call it, like a high dependency ward or whatever,
yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, my language is
No, 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 it
yeah.
is because it's
Mm,
highly secure, highly
mm,
risk averse environment where your rights and also like all your behavior suddenly being monitored.
definitely.
And you're
And
only 15.
only 15, yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah, it was kind of that environment was the the secure ward was really difficult. But when they shifted me, I think a week or two after
Mm,
that into the more medium one, and that experience was actually a lot better.
mm,
There was like a music room, and I started playing guitar, and
mm.
there was a friend I met in there at the time who was hearing voices and stuff like this, and he would drum and I would play guitar, and that was therapeutic, like stuff like that. I really enjoyed within that space, the yeah,
The
the
human
the
connections,
human connection,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, the opportunity to do something meaningful, even though as
mm,
simple as playing
yeah,
music instruments, but finding someone
yeah.
who understand your experience without saying much.
Exactly. I think those creative outlets were really helpful,
Mm,
especially because I had a lot of anger and a lot of rage inside of me from
mm.
a lot of things that have happened. And I didn't really know how to have an outlet for that.
Or
You
process
know,
it.
that time, when I talked about my first overdose in school, actually, it was from school that took me from the ambulance to Middlemore. I remember, like, I threw this, I think it was like a chair or something, through
Yeah.
this wall, and there was this hole there, and the next time I went to this was in a nurse's office, and the next time I went there, they got a filing cabinet and just kind of put it there and blocked it off. And I think that's the thing. There were so many little things
Yes,
that
yes.
were just unspoken.
Really?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't they now even after you come back, they didn't tell you what's
yeah.
going on, they didn't
I,
say
I remember that part. No,
yeah.
I was lucid. That was the overdose was separate from the psych ward thing. I don't remember
Yeah,
what led up to it.
yeah.
I learned about it later. They expelled me from the school, and I had to make an apology to the board of trustees or something like this.
Mm,
Make a formal apology and have social workers help do all that stuff.
mm,
So yeah, that's where it sort of started with me, with my challenges around mental health and addiction as well. And that just followed on for another
mm.
13 years.